Imagine getting paid just for sharing your thoughts on products and services you use every day. With Survey Junkie, it's that simple. Click on the link in the video description to discover how you can start earning today by taking surveys.
Doctors across the U.S. are reporting an alarming health trend in the wake of the pandemic. Since about 2021, they are noticing rare and unusual cancers in patients who shouldn't fit the bill, many of them young and without any family history of disease. Cancers that typically affect seniors in their 70s and 80s are now striking people in their 40s, including bile duct and rare blood cancers. The pandemic forced people to isolate and put off preventative care measures that would screen for various types of cancers, out of fear of being infected. But doctors do not believe this to be the primary driver of advanced, rare cancer cases. Instead, they posit that COVID itself is to blame. Dr. Kushyap Patel, a North Carolina oncologist, has seen this firsthand. He saw a patient in his 40s in 2021 who had a rare cancer of the bile ducts, which transport fluid produced by the liver to the small intestine, where it aids in the absorption and digestion of fats. This type of cancer typically affects people in their 70s and 80s. Then, multiple other patients he met with were diagnosed with an array of different cancers, something he said he has never seen in his 2 decades of practicing medicine. One couple he investigated were Bob and Bonnie Krall of Fort Mill, South Carolina, who in a 14-month period were diagnosed with 3 types of cancer between them, despite having no genetic predisposition. Mr. Krall was diagnosed with a rare chronic blood and bone marrow cancer, while Mrs. Krall had a malignancy in her abdomen weighing 8.5 pounds, according to the Washington Post. Mr. Krall later learned that several of his neighbors had the same type of cancer. It's like a cold. It seems like everyone has it. Viruses have been known to accelerate cancer since the 1960s, and researchers contend that a quarter of all cancers worldwide originated with HPV, Epstein-Barr virus, and hepatitis B. Researchers have focused on the effects of COVID itself as well as lingering symptoms even after recovering, a phenomenon known as long COVID. They have not, however, uncovered links between the COVID vaccines and cancer risk, though research into the long-term effects of vaccines is ongoing. They're not exactly sure why vaccines do not appear to be linked to cancers, but one possible explanation could be that COVID vaccines, even the viral vector vaccine from Johnson & Johnson, do not contain the live virus, which could in rare instances lead to illness. Science has shown that coronavirus proteins fuel the replication of various viruses known to reawaken dormant cancer cells, increasing the odds of being diagnosed with breast, stomach, and blood cancers. Research into the links between COVID and cancer is relatively new, given the pandemic began only 4 years ago. A 2023 report in the journal Biochemistry detailed different means by which the coronavirus can change genes that usually stop tumors from forming and cause widespread inflammation throughout the body. This inflammation might lead to the development of cancer cells in various organs, including the lungs, pancreas, and colon. And a team in Colorado has begun probing the possibility that the coronavirus brings cancer cells to life in mice. A preprint released in April showed that when mice who had cancer previously but recovered were injected with the coronavirus, cancer cells multiplied and spread in the lungs. The flu virus was shown to do the same thing. Researchers such as Dr. Ashwini Weeraratne of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health were not exactly surprised by this finding. She said that it makes sense that something like influenza or COVID that triggers inflammation could change in the immune microenvironment, adding, "It's rare the data are so striking." Dr. Weeraratne said, "Mitigating risk of infection may be of particular importance for cancer patients," Weeraratne said. Based on the study's findings, measures adopted by vulnerable patients starting in the early days of the pandemic, wearing masks, avoiding crowded places, getting vaccines, become even more important. Dr. Patel is now researching the connection himself. Based on data from over 300 patients, his office have logged over 15 patients with multiple cancers, about 35 who had rare cancers, and 15 couples with new cancers since the pandemic began 4 years ago. He posited that being infected